What if the wrathful gods of our ancestors weren't divine spirits at all?
Right, like what if they were just a massive prehistoric misunderstanding of advanced technology?
Exactly. What if the original sin of humanity, like the foundational trauma of our entire civilization, was simply a global cargo cult?
It's a huge concept to wrap your head around.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I want you to picture yourself standing in a dense primeval forest. Let's go back, I don't know, maybe 12,000 years.
Okay, setting the scene. We're way back.
Yeah. The air is incredibly thick, the sky bruises over with these violent, dark clouds, and a massive thunderstorm rolls in.
And you were completely exposed.
Totally exposed. And crucially, you don't have the concept of atmospheric pressure.
Right, no science classes for you.
Exactly. You have absolutely no idea what a meteorological front is or what static electricity does. You are just shivering in the mud, totally at the mercy of the elements.
You are living entirely in the immediate sensory present, right? Like without any scientific framework to contextualize the environment around you.
Right. And then out of nowhere, you hear this deafening, bone-rattling crack that just seems to rip the sky open.
Terrifying.
A blinding flash of light instantly incinerates a towering pine tree maybe 50 feet away from you. The smell of ozone and, boiling sap fills the air.
I mean, to you in that specific moment, that isn't just a weather event.
No, it's a message. That lightning strike is a powerful, invisible being, and that being is furious with you.
Yeah, that reaction really highlights how the human brain is desperately trying to build a bridge over a massive abyss of ignorance.
Right, we hate not knowing things.
We do. The human mind is, at its core, this ruthless pattern recognition machine. When we are faced with terrifying chaos, and we lack the mechanical explanation for an event, we inherently invent a motive.
We personify the chaos just to survive it.
Exactly. Because if the lightning is just random, you're helpless.
Right.
But if the lightning is an angry entity, well, maybe you can appease it. You project human emotion onto nature because it's literally the only cognitive template you possess.
We crave the explanation. We desperately need to know why the tree exploded so we can, stop it from happening to us.
Right, to regain some illusion of control.
But what if we step out of the realm of basic meteorology? Like, if you are joining us for this deep dive, you are probably familiar with ancient history theories and those various extraterrestrial hypotheses out there.
Yeah, the classic ancient astronaut tropes.
Exactly. Glowing chariots in the sky, visitors from the stars, all of that. But today, we are pushing way past the surface level premise of those stories.
We're going much deeper.
We are. This is a special documentary exploration we are calling Creation Conversations, exploring consciousness, history, and reality.
It's a big title for a big topic.
Yeah, well, our mission today is to examine this fascinating historical and diagnostic landscape that's been obscured by thousands of years of mistranslation.
And psychological manipulation, honestly.
Right. We are specifically examining claims derived from the Plejaren teachings, drawn from a text known as Billy Meier's Contact Report 039.
And just for context, Billy Meier is a highly controversial figure in ufology.
Very controversial.
He claimed to have documented extensive, ongoing physical contact with a group of extraterrestrial humans calling themselves the Plejaren.
Right. And Contact Report 039 purports to be a transcript of a conversation between Meyer and one of these beings.
Yeah, outlining a massive alternative history of human civilization.
Right.
But we need to clearly establish our analytical framework before we go any further.
Definitely. Ground rules are important here.
Right. The claims we are unpacking today are entirely distinct from mainstream scientific consensus. Mainstream science relies on empirical artifact evidence, like carbon-dated bones or geological strata.
Yeah, and I want to be crystal clear right out of the gate here. We are not here to evangelize.
Not at all.
We are not endorsing beliefs, and we are absolutely not taking any religious or political sides. Our approach here is purely exploratory.
We are treating these claims as a lens, basically.
Exactly.
We are contrasting these reported encounters against mainstream evolutionary psychology, historical sociology, and theoretical physics.
Right, because the objective is to impartially explore the ideas presented in this text, to see what they can actually teach us about the architecture of our own minds.
The origins of our fear.
Yeah, and the evolution of human consciousness itself.
So, to really grasp the magnitude of what this text proposes, we have to rewind the clock back to a time long before the wheel.
Way back, before the Bronze Age. We are talking about deeply isolated tribal humanity.
Right. We were intimately connected to the natural rhythms of the earth, hunting and gathering, but severely limited in our understanding of the broader mechanics of the universe.
We were a species in its absolute infancy.
Exactly. And the foundational claim of our source text is that during this vulnerable infancy, Earth was visited by highly advanced civilizations from other star systems.
And it's important to note how the text frames this, right? Because
Yeah.
these were not ethereal gods.
No, not interdimensional spirits.
They were flesh and blood humans who were simply thousands of years ahead of us in technology, medicine, and energy manipulation.
Right, and the pivot point of this entire narrative is the collision of those two realities. It is the ultimate culture clash.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens when a civilization that has mastered interstellar travel drops into the lap of a civilization that hasn't even mastered basic agriculture?
When you lack the vocabulary for science, you use the vocabulary of the sacred.
You have to. It's all you have.
Let's ground this with a modern analogy just to show how jarring this would actually be. Imagine taking a modern military reconnaissance drone.
Oh, that's a good one. Like a massive, sleek machine.
Yeah, painted matte black, rigged with blinding LED floodlights, high decibel acoustic hailing systems, and thermal imaging cameras.
Just a terrifying piece of hardware.
And we send that drone through a time machine back to an isolated 10th century pre-industrial village in the dead of night.
Oh, man, a completely terrifying scenario for them.
Right. We hover it silently over the town square, shine a million lumen spotlight down on the mud huts, and broadcast a booming pre-recorded voice in their native language.
To those 10th century villagers, that drone is unequivocally magic.
It is a deity. They have zero framework for lithium-ion batteries.
Or radio waves.
Or aerodynamics. They don't know what a circuit board is. Their only logical conclusion is that a god has descended from the heavens to pass judgment.
It is a highly effective analogy because, well, we don't even need to rely on hypotheticals for this.
We actually have historical proof.
Yeah, in anthropology, we have a documented 20th century equivalent. It's called the cargo cult phenomenon.
Right, which primarily occurred during and immediately after the Second World War.
Exactly. The U.S. and Japanese militaries set up these temporary, sprawling air bases on highly remote Pacific islands.
Like Tanna in Vanuatu.
Right, and various other islands in Melanesia. The indigenous populations of these islands had lived in profound isolation for generations. They were completely cut off from industrial society.
Suddenly, their reality just shatters.
Just completely shatters. Massive, deafening metal birds drop from the sky, clearing out swaths of jungle.
Right.
And out of these metal birds comes incredible wealth, what the islanders called cargo.
Yeah, canned meat, advanced medicine, flashlights, canvas tents.
Radios, Hershey bars, just unimaginable abundance materializing seemingly out of thin air.
The crucial detail here, though, is that the islanders didn't see the factories in Detroit.
No, they didn't see the global supply chains or the shipping manifests or the industrial manufacturing process.
They just saw soldiers waving glowing sticks on a runway.
Right. Speaking into strange metal boxes, and then goods miraculously arrived from the heavens.
They witnessed the ritual, but completely misunderstood the mechanics.
Exactly. And when the war ended, the militaries packed up, abandoned the bases, and the cargo stopped coming.
So what did the indigenous populations do?
They attempted to reverse engineer the magic through sympathetic rituals.
It's wild to think about. They built life-size airplanes out of straw and palm fronds.
They carved wooden headphones and sat in bamboo control towers, mimicking the air traffic controllers they had observed.
They lit signal fires along cleared strips of jungle to mimic runway lights.
Yeah, they took advanced military logistics and interpreted it as a divine religious event. They were trying to summon the gods to bring the cargo back.
The John Frum cult in Vanuatu is the most famous example of this, right? Where an entirely new religion was born out of a misunderstanding of a supply chain.
It really is.
Huh.
And that maps so perfectly onto the linguistic limitations we see in ancient texts.
Which is exactly what the Plejaren claim suggests. The text essentially posits that the genesis of our ancient mythologies, the pantheons of gods coming from the sky, is basically a global prehistoric cargo cult.
Yeah, think about it. If an ancient human sees a glowing craft descending silently, and their absolute pinnacle of transportation is a wooden cart pulled by an ox,
Right.
they are going to call that craft a chariot of the heavens or a chariot of fire.
Because you describe the unknown by anchoring it to the known.
Precisely. If a visitor uses a directed energy weapon, say, an excavation laser for mining, or even a tool for crowd control.
The tribal human doesn't possess the phrase photonic beam.
No, the only linguistic tool available to them is fire from above, or the wrath of the heavens.
The source text even mentions holographic communication.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if you are a Bronze Age human and a glowing, three-dimensional, translucent projection of a person just appears in your tent.
That is a ghost. That is an angel.
Exactly. And if they seem to know what you were doing yesterday because they have, like, orbital surveillance or long-range acoustics, you are going to label that an all-seeing, all-knowing deity.
It is a purely logical deduction based on the incredibly limited data set you possess.
Right. It makes sense to them.
It is completely rational within their framework. They are doing the best they can with the cognitive tools they have at their disposal.
This brings up a thought I really want to challenge, actually. Arthur C. Clarke famously wrote his third law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
A classic quote.
Yeah. And we look back at these Bronze Age humans with this sense of superiority, right? Thinking we are so much smarter now because we have smartphones and particle accelerators.
Oh, absolutely. We think we're past all that.
But if a highly advanced extraterrestrial civilization parked a silent, glowing mothership right over Times Square tomorrow, would our cynical, mathematically literate society actually recognize it as technology?
Or would we revert to a supernatural panic?
Right.
We would absolutely
Yeah,
be.
you think so? Even today?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, sure, a very small fraction of theoretical physicists might stand in Times Square and hypothesize about zero-point energy or gravity wave manipulation.
Space-time metric engineering, sure.
Right. But a massive segment of modern humanity would immediately revert to supernatural ideation.
Right.
We're biologically wired for it.
That's a scary thought.
If this technology could instantaneously heal a terminal illness by manipulating matter at a molecular level right in front of us, you would see instant techno-religions springing up globally.
People would be worshiping the ship within hours.
Hours. Because the impulse to worship that which completely dominates our understanding is deeply embedded in our neurobiology.
So if an isolated tribe will organically worship a drone, or an islander will worship a cargo plane, what happens if the person flying the drone realizes they have absolute psychological control over an entire civilization?
And this is where this narrative gets incredibly dark.
Yeah. Because if advanced technology is so easily mistaken for divinity, what happens when the visitors wielding that technology realize they are being worshipped?
They exploit the awe.
Exactly. According to the source material, while some of these ancient visitors might have been benevolent explorers trying to teach agriculture or basic hygiene.
Right, the helpful ones.
Yeah, but others looked down at these terrified, worshiping tribes and saw a massive opportunity for subjugation.
The text details a very specific, darker claim here. It says rogue leaders among these advanced visitors weaponize their technological superiority to completely control less developed humans.
It's just a terrifying abuse of power.
It is. The text draws a very deliberate line here. It suggests that these rogue alien leaders leaned hard into the cargo cult dynamic,
Right.
and they became the foundational model for the wrathful, jealous, and punitive god figures that dominate parts of the Old Testament and various other ancient mythologies.
They created a cosmic protection racket.
That's exactly what it was.
They demanded absolute, unquestioning obedience. They demanded blood sacrifices. They instilled this generational terror of divine retribution if you stepped out of line.
They became the architects of fear.
And it is a terrifying concept, laying the groundwork for how human institutions would eventually govern themselves.
Right. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Wait, do we really need an alien tyrant to explain a wrathful god?
That is the big question.
Because early humans were surviving ice ages and famines. Couldn't they have just invented a scary god to cope with the harsh realities of the weather and disease?
Right. Aren't human beings perfectly capable of terrorizing themselves without any cosmic intervention?
Exactly. That is a vital, critical perspective. And this is where we bring in the mainstream evolutionary psychology alternative, which provides a deeply evidenced, entirely human explanation for this exact same phenomenon.
Okay, let's explore that lens.
We have to remember the sheer brutality of the Pleistocene epoch for early hominids. You are living in a fundamentally hostile, wildly unpredictable environment.
Starvation, disease,
Yeah.
massive predators.
Right. One bad frost wipes out your foraging grounds.
Or a localized flood destroys your encampment and kills half your family.
Exactly. Existential dread paralyzed them. Evolutionary psychology posits that inventing a wrathful deity is an organically evolved, highly effective coping mechanism for that dread.
How so? Like, why would a wrathful god make you feel better?
Think about the mechanics of the illusion of agency. If a flood is just random weather, you are a helpless victim of a chaotic universe.
Okay.
That causes a continuous spike in cortisol that you cannot resolve. You're in a permanent state of trauma because you have literally no control.
You are just waiting for the next disaster to strike.
Exactly. But if the flood is a punishment from a wrathful god because someone in your tribe broke a taboo,
Oh, I see. Suddenly you have agency.
yes, you can perform a ritual. You can sacrifice an animal to appease the angry sky. You can exile the rule breaker. You have manufactured a sense of control over the uncontrollable.
You bring order to the chaos.
Right.
And if you look at early tribal structures, they naturally lean toward authoritarianism anyway.
Yes, a ruthless, hyper-dominant alpha male tribal leader kept the tribe unified and safe from competing groups.
So it's a very short psychological leap to take that ruthless tribal leader archetype and just project it into the sky as a cosmic dictator.
Precisely. We didn't necessarily require an advanced alien to teach us how to dominate each other through fear. Our own evolutionary bottleneck provided all the incentive we needed.
So what you're saying is whether this system of control was imposed by a rogue alien ruler wielding laser weapons, as the Plejaren texts claim,
Or it bubbled up naturally from our own psychological survival instincts.
the end result on the human psyche is absolutely identical.
The trauma is exactly the same.
Fear became the foundational operating system for civilization itself.
It is baked into the foundational myths of almost every culture. Think about it.
Don't eat the apple, or humanity is damned forever.
Don't look back at the burning city, or you instantly turn into a pillar of salt.
Build a massive boat, or drown with the rest of the world. Comply or suffer eternally. It is an extortion racket on a cosmic scale.
It really is. And physical chains rust. Empires collapse. Tyrants die. But psychological chains become tradition.
So how does a belief system based entirely on terror actually survive for thousands of years?
Well, the source text claims that these ancient paradigms of fear, guilt, and unquestioning obedience never actually disappeared.
They just rebranded.
Exactly. They simply put on new clothes. The architecture of the institutions changed over time, but the core psychology remained totally intact, prioritizing authority over truth.
But how does modern science explain a historical trauma surviving for like 80 generations? How does this deep programming actually work on a biological level?
This is where it gets fascinating. We can map this directly onto modern neuroscience and epigenetics.
Okay, break that down for me.
Let's start with the brain, specifically the amygdala, which is our fear center. When a population is subjected to chronic, inescapable fear, from a tyrannical ruler or extreme environmental stress, the brain fundamentally rewires its neural pathways
To do what?
to heavily favor hypervigilance and conformity. In a highly punitive society, questioning authority is a literal threat to your physical survival.
Right, if you question the priest or the king, you get executed. The ones who survive and reproduce are the ones who conform.
But it goes deeper than just social learning. Modern epigenetics shows us that severe, sustained trauma can alter the way your genes are expressed.
Wait, does trauma change my literal DNA sequence? Like, how does fear in the brain of a peasant in the Middle Ages literally enter a sperm or an egg cell to affect someone living today?
Okay, so the DNA sequence itself, the letters of your genetic code, doesn't change. Think of your DNA as the hardware of a computer and the epigenome as the software that tells the hardware what to do.
Got it. Hardware stays the same, software updates.
Exactly. When a person experiences extreme trauma, their body is flooded with stress hormones, primarily cortisol. If this biochemical flood is sustained over a long period, it can cause chemical tags, called methyl groups, to physically attach to certain genes.
So it's physically marking the DNA.
Yes. This process, known as DNA methylation, effectively turns genes on or off based on that environmental stress.
It's like putting a bookmark in a massive recipe book, telling the body to only read the recipes for survival and panic, and just completely ignoring the recipes for relaxation and curiosity.
That is a perfect analogy. And those flip switches, those chemical tags, can be passed down to the embryo. You are inheriting your ancestors' traumatized stress response.
That is mind-blowing.
And we have peer-reviewed science backing this up. Look at the famous studies of the Dutch hunger winter during World War II.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, pregnant women who starved during that winter gave birth to children, and eventually grandchildren, who had altered metabolisms and a higher risk of metabolic diseases despite never experiencing famine themselves.
Because the trauma of the starvation altered their epigenetic markers?
Exactly. There are also studies where mice were conditioned to fear the smell of cherry blossoms through mild electric shocks.
Okay.
Their offspring, and even their grand-offspring, exhibited a fear response to the smell of cherry blossoms without ever having been shocked themselves.
That is incredible. So you are born with a nervous system already primed for fear, already seeking out authority to keep you safe.
Yes. When the text talks about a psychological programming so deep that people forgot who they truly were, it aligns perfectly with the biological mechanics of intergenerational trauma.
We are running on a legacy operating system built on guilt.
We really are.
And you can see modern symptoms of this ancient trauma everywhere today.
Oh, definitely. Look at the rigid hierarchical structures of corporate environments.
Or extreme political dogmatism, where questioning your own party's platform results in immediate social excommunication.
The ultimate symptom, according to the Plejaren text, is the outsourcing of critical thinking.
Yeah, we are so conditioned to believe that truth is something handed down from above, from a CEO, a news anchor, or an algorithm.
Rather than something discovered inward. Because when you depend entirely on an external power to tell you what reality is, you are infinitely controllable.
But if this wrathful, micromanaging external God is a manipulated concept, whether by aliens or by our own primitive brains, what is the actual truth of existence according to these teachings?
This is where the source material makes a massive theological pivot. It redefines creation entirely.
Okay, how
It
soon?
explicitly states that creation is not a personified entity. There is no human emotion involved, no anger, no jealousy.
No cosmic ledger keeping track of your mistakes?
Right, no white beard in the sky.
According to the text, creation is the universal consciousness. It is the natural laws that permeate all life. The raw energy within galaxies, within evolution, cause and effect.
It is the self-organizing principle of existence itself.
When we look at this description, it sounds remarkably like the ultimate goal of modern physics, right? Like the unified field theory.
Exactly. Physicists have spent a century trying to find a single mathematical framework that unites the four fundamental forces of nature.
Give me a quick breakdown of what those four forces actually are, just so we can see what physics is trying to unite here.
Sure. You have gravity, which acts on massive bodies and holds planets in orbit.
Right.
You have electromagnetism, which governs light, magnets, and the chemical bonds between atoms. Then you have the strong nuclear force, which holds the nucleus of an atom together, and the weak nuclear force, which is responsible for radioactive decay. Right now, our math for gravity doesn't play nicely with our math for the quantum world. The unified field theory seeks one elegant equation that explains how all four forces are just different manifestations of a single underlying phenomenon.
They are looking for the source code of the universe.
Exactly. And the text describes a universe that is profoundly interconnected, governed by inescapable laws of energy exchange, which mirrors that exact scientific pursuit.
Let's contrast these two views with an analogy, because the shift in how you view the universe here is monumental.
It really changes everything.
Yeah. So the old manipulated worldview is like a CEO sitting in a corner office. The CEO is micromanaging the factory floor, monitoring every single worker, handing out bonuses or firing people based on, arbitrary rules that only the CEO understands.
Right, totally top-down control.
But this new view of creation as universal physics and natural law is more like a mycelial network in a vast forest.
The underground fungal network.
Yeah. Beneath the soil, there is this invisible, profoundly interconnected web of fungi, often called the wood wide web.
Right, it connects everything.
It balances the nutrients of the entire forest. It governs growth, redistributes water from older trees to younger saplings, and maintains the equilibrium of the ecosystem.
And it does all of this without a central brain.
Exactly. It doesn't consciously decide who gets what. It doesn't judge the trees for being good or bad. It just functions naturally according to its own biological laws. It simply is.
Philosophically, this maps perfectly onto Baruch Spinoza.
Oh, the philosopher.
Yeah, he was a 17th century philosopher who introduced a concept so radical he was actually excommunicated for it by his religious community.
What was the concept?
He argued that God and nature are synonymous. God is not outside the universe pulling the strings. God is the universe and its natural laws.
Wow, so no separation at all.
None. Interestingly, this was famously Albert Einstein's preferred view of the divine.
Really? Einstein believed that.
Yeah. When asked if he believed in God, Einstein replied that he believed in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the lawful harmony of the world, not in an entity concerned with the fates and actions of human beings.
That is fascinating. So if we shift from a micromanaged worldview to a Spinozan universal worldview. How does that redefine morality?
Well, the old system is highly transactional and, frankly, childlike.
Right. Behave well, get a treat in heaven. Behave poorly, get fired into hell.
You are acting out of fear of the parent's wrath, not an understanding of right and wrong.
Let's use the hot stove analogy. If you touch a hot stove, the universe doesn't burn your hand to punish you for being a sinner.
Right.
The universe has absolutely no moral judgment about your hand. It is simply the laws of thermodynamics at play. Thermal energy transfers from hotter objects to cooler ones.
Exactly. When you understand that, your morality is forced to grow up.
Yeah.
You act based on a deep awareness of cause and effect, not a paralyzing fear of judgment.
You transition from obedience to awareness.
And this brings us to what the text calls the awakening.
Okay, what is the awakening?
The source claims that the modern abandonment of rigid institutions, the fact that people are leaving dogmatic hierarchical structures in droves across the globe, is not societal degeneration.
Right, it's not a collapse of morals.
No, it is an evolution beyond fear. Humanity is slowly maturing out of its spiritual infancy.
We were never meant to stay dependent on those fear-based control structures forever. They were an evolutionary bottleneck.
Exactly. This is an echo of Immanuel Kant's 1784 essay, What is Enlightenment? Kant argued that enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-imposed nonage.
Wantage, like immaturity.
Yes, his inability to use his own understanding without the guidance of another. His motto was, Sapere ad dare to know. Have the courage to use your own understanding.
Dare to know, I love that.
The Plejaren text is advocating for precisely that, a spiritual and intellectual enlightenment where inner wisdom and logical deduction take precedence over external dictates.
Now, the awakening sounds beautiful on paper, right? But there's a massive catch to all of this.
There is always a catch.
It comes with a crushing burden of responsibility. In the old system, you had a scapegoat.
You always had someone else to blame for your circumstances.
Right. If your crops failed or you made a terrible decision, you could blame God's mysterious will.
Or you could blame the devil's temptation.
Or the corrupt king. If you carry a fragment of the universal spirit within you, and the universe operates strictly on cause and effect, you are out of excuses.
You are the sole architect of your consciousness.
And that terrifies people.
It is profoundly uncomfortable to realize that you cannot blame an external deity, and you cannot even blame a rogue ancient alien ruler anymore.
Right.
It is far easier to sit in a straw airplane wearing wooden headphones hoping the sky gods bring you answers than it is to build your own runway and figure out the aerodynamics yourself.
The cargo cult is comfortable. Independent thought is exhausting.
Very true.
So let's pull this massive timeline together and look at the sheer scope of this documentary exploration. We started in the prehistoric mud, right? With tribal humans fundamentally misinterpreting advanced technology lasers, holograms, flight as divine magic.
And we examined the terrifying possibility that this cargo cult misunderstanding was weaponized by rogue leaders posing as wrathful gods.
Yeah. And we explored the evolutionary psychology that primed humanity to accept that fear-based control to alleviate existential dread.
We looked at the biology of belief, exploring how intergenerational trauma and DNA methylation physically embedded that fear into our modern operating system.
Then we explored the breathtaking pivot, redefining creation not as a judgmental micromanager, but as the magnificent self-organizing physics of the universe itself.
Spinoza's God, the mycelial network.
Culminating in the painful but necessary evolution toward personal responsibility and independent thinking.
The core takeaway from these source materials, regardless of your stance on their literal historical accuracy, is the profound push for self-empowerment.
Absolutely.
The goal isn't to replace old dogmas with a new Plejaren dogma. The true goal is to trust your own capacity to reason, to observe, and to connect directly with the universe.
To graduate from our spiritual infancy. Now, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought that builds on this entire exploration.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked extensively about how our ancient ancestors were completely overwhelmed by advanced technology. They didn't understand the glowing ships, so their brains short-circuited.
Right.
They abdicated their intellectual autonomy, declared it magic, and granted it unquestioning authority over their lives.
Because the gap in comprehension was simply too wide.
Look around at our world today. Look at the incredibly rapid, opaque advancement of artificial intelligence. We have vastly complex algorithmic systems that now dictate our financial markets, our justice systems, and our news feeds.
And these systems are essentially black boxes.
Exactly. Even the engineers who build these deep learning neural networks often cannot explain exactly how the AI arrived at its output.
They feed millions of data points into a system, and the algorithm assigns thousands of weights and biases inside hidden layers of mathematical processing.
The machine learns on its own, optimizing for a goal, but the pathway it takes to get there becomes too mathematically complex for any human brain to trace.
The math has completely surpassed our intuitive grasp.
Just as Bronze Age humans stared up at glowing ships and declared them magic, modern humans are staring into glowing screens, completely unable to understand the magic inside the black box.
It's the same dynamic playing out all over again.
It is. Here's the warning. Are we building a brand new cargo cult? Are we quietly beginning to worship and obey a new invisible authority? Are we willingly handing over our critical thinking to the output of an algorithm simply because we no longer understand how it works?
It is a chilling question. We must resist the human impulse to invent a new god to explain the algorithm.
Right.
If we are truly to evolve beyond fear and outgrow our spiritual infancy, we cannot afford to abdicate our reasoning to a new, incomprehensible higher power. Dare to know how it works.
Have the courage to use your own understanding. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the narrative, and always dare to know.